Catholic News Roundup is brought to you in part by PewSitter.com, your online Catholic newspaper for the third millennium, CatholicMediaCoalition.org, in line with the Church, online with the world.
And TheAmericanCatholic.com, politics and culture from a Catholic perspective.
Hello and welcome to today's edition of Catholic News Roundup. I'm Simon Rafe. No defense for DOMA. The Obama administration will no longer defend the Defense of Marriage Act, or DOMA, which defines marriage as a relationship between a man and a woman, Attorney General Eric Holder has announced. The Justice Department traditionally defends all federal laws against court challenges, but Holder said that if no reasonable defense is available, his department does not offer such defense. In the case of the DOMA law, he said no reasonable defense is possible. In his recent announcement, Holder said that Obama had changed his views on DOMA and, quote, concluded that, given a number of factors, including a documented history of discrimination, classifications based on sexual orientation should be subjected to a more heightened standard of scrutiny, unquote. He said that the president concluded that the DOMA legislation, quote, fails to meet that standard and is therefore unconstitutional, unquote. Holder also said, however, that the executive branch will continue to enforce the law until it is repealed by Congress or overturned by the courts. Christian missionaries file suit. Following up on the continuing story of Muslims versus Christians in Dearborn, Michigan, the city, its mayor, police chief, and others are now being sued in federal court, accused of violating the civil rights of the Christian missionaries arrested at an Arab festival there last summer. Now, according to the Detroit News, the 96-page lawsuit filed by the Thomas More Law Center names the officials, 17 police officers, and 2 executives of the American Arab Chamber of Commerce. The lawsuit alleges Mayor John B. O'Reilly Jr., Police Chief Ronald Haddad, and others conspired to deprive the missionaries of their constitutional rights when they were charged with disturbing the peace at the Arab International Festival this past June. Now, the charges drew widespread attention because of the religious and free speech issues raised by the case. 4 Christians were acquitted of disturbing the peace charges last fall. However, one has been convicted of failure to obey a police officer's order because she did not put her camera away quickly enough. Live actions, tactics, and controversy. Leela Rose, president of the pro-life activist group Live Action, has issued a new statement responding to ethical concerns from several top theologians and philosophers about her group's work. Live Action's Catholic critics overwhelmingly agree with the group's goal of exposing and defunding Planned Parenthood. What troubles them is the use of so-called sting tactics, which employ false identities and statements, such as claiming to be a pimp or a prostitute, in an attempt to show Planned Parenthood's willingness to cover up crimes. Live Action President Leela Rose provided Catholic News Agency with a statement responding to her critics, reproduced here in its entirety. Live Action is a small, pro-life grassroots organization, and one of our primary goals is to unmask the lies of the abortion industry and lobby, she wrote. We are not about deception, we are about the truth. Some Catholic intellectuals, she acknowledged, have a problem with Live Action's practicing of established methods of investigative work. We in no way mean to dismiss their opinions, but we are in profound disagreement with them. At this time, Rose concluded, our team's energies and attentions must be focused on advancing the opportunities our investigative research has provided the pro-life movement. We invite you to join us 100% to work together with all our hearts to defend the lives of the millions at stake. An interesting statement there from Leela Rose. Stay with us, we'll be back in just a few seconds.
Catholic News Roundup is brought to you in part by NewOxfordReview.org, the voice of Catholic Orthodoxy, in print and on the web, and RenewAmerica.com, expanding the influence of America's grassroots in the cause of freedom.
CatholicUnderground.com, the podcast about our Catholic faith and new media.
Catholics defend Cathedral. From the Catholic News Agency, hundreds of Peruvian Catholics gathered at the entrance to the Cathedral of Lima this past weekend to pray a rosary for peace in response to a kiss-in against homophobia, organized by a small group of homosexuals and lesbians just a few yards from the church. This was the second time homosexual activists staged a kiss-in after their first protest ended with police forcibly removing them from the steps of the cathedral. This time they came with the explicit blessing of Lima's mayor, who has voiced her support for homosexual unions on numerous occasions. Now, despite a heavy media campaign to promote the most recent kiss-in, only 8 people showed up in Lima's central square. In response to the planned protest, however, some 200 Catholics showed up outside the cathedral and formed a human barrier for more than 3 hours. The group spent the time peacefully praying the rosary and singing hymns. And finally, thank yous to be sent to John Paul II's Beatification. With the Beatification of John Paul II scheduled for May the 1st, HeadlineBistro.com is inviting the young people who grew up with him as Pope, the members of the JPII generation, to say thank you to the late Holy Father. From now until April the 27th, Headline Bistro, a Catholic news website and an initiative of the Knights of Columbus, is collecting written submissions from Catholic young adults who are grateful for the life and legacy of Pope John Paul II. Now, the letters will be brought to the Beatification by Carl Anderson, Supreme Knight of the Knights of Columbus, who will be in attendance at the ceremonies. Just click on the link right over here to submit your expression of thanks to the late Pope. I'm Simon Rafe. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure and tell your friends about us and tune in tomorrow for your daily dose of Catholic News Roundup right here on RealCatholicTV.com. And be sure to check out The Vortex today, where Michael Voris comes to us live from the Philippines. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure and tell all of your friends about us. And as always, God bless.